as a person who has served my nation for 35 years in the uniform of the United States Navy, climate change is a national security problem. Energy security is a national security problem. So I come at it from the perspective of security, and I define that security in the broadest possible terms: political, military, and economic. And in every measure, climate change and energy dependency on fossil fuel is a significant, probably the biggest security challenge that we've had. It's a tough one, though, to think about, because unlike traditional security threats, there's not a well-defined enemy, there's not a specific hotspot or crisis timeline that you have to respond to. It's something that's happening slowly but very, very surely over time, with enormous adverse consequences if it's left unchecked, having, as it does, the potential for increased water floods, if you will, in certain parts of the world, much more intense and frequent natural disasters, typhoons and hurricanes, multi-year droughts, prolonged droughts that would cause crop failure. And all of these can combine at the same time in different areas of the world to put together a scenario in which multiple people have to move just to be able to access the basics of life. We have issues across ethnic, religious, economic, and political lines today, and when you add the stress that climate change effects will cause in different ways, in a much more frequent way, in a much more intense and prolonged way, that is a recipe for a great deal of instability. And it's the kind of instability when governments and social organizations are unable to meet essential needs that will cause fragile governments and fragile structures to become failed. That creates a power vacuum. Into that power vacuum, as we've seen many times in our history, will be filled by extremists and people who can actually use terrorism as a weapon to try to further their cause. I think that the United States has the ability and really an obligation to lead. We are a nation that uses 25% of the world's oil, for example, every year, and yet we sit on top of less than 3% of the known reserves. We need to, as the major economy in the world and as a nation that has led in the past, bring together with our allies the kinds of solutions that can, in a comprehensive and long-range way, address the combined challenges of energy security, climate change, and international security. These challenges, if you will, aren't confined to nations' capitals or Copenhagen or any place else. They exist everywhere there are people, and everywhere there are people who need energy, who are striving to increase their economic well-being and their quality of life. And for all of us, the ability to use energy much more efficiently, to develop and deploy alternative sources, renewable energy that can be a much more sustainable commodity than any of the fossil fuels that we have today. And we need to come together as an international community to address this. Forums such as Copenhagen provide the opportunity to share information, to understand best practices, and to develop the kinds of relationships on a personal and at the organizational and national level that will allow us to cooperate in developing comprehensive solutions. We have to do everything we can as a nation in the United States and as an international community to prevent, mitigate, and adapt to the effects of climate change.